Welcome to Life Hacks Beyond Convention with Dee and Sonia.
Because I must have said something about, maybe I should go and check out Senior Citizens. Because actually I'm old enough to go to Senior Citizens now.
Yes.
And it's like, why would you do that? Who wants to go to Senior Citizens, All they do is whatever their perception was. And it's just like,
I don't know, I've got to find out.
Well, and the thing is, sometimes it's fun just to sit down and have a game of cards with somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not into bingo, so I don't think I'd want to play bingo with them.
No.
But I'm really happy to have a game of cards. Some of them do. Maybe they'll do some line dancing or something. I wouldn't mind learning how to line dance.
Might learn some old-fashioned crocheting hints or...
Well, exactly, because some of the oldies, they've been crocheting for 80 years and they could teach me a thing or two.
Yeah. And you might go along there and hate it, so you'll just have to go somewhere else because that's a new decision.
I don't know whether I'm going to go to Senior Citizens, but I was just shocked at the response.
Yeah.
From some people. It's just like, oh, okay.
Who knows? They might be, yeah.
Yeah, so you'd just rather sit at home and be lonely. Yeah. No worries.
They might be doing line dancing or something completely different that's active. So, yeah.
Well, and I saw it advertised quite a few years ago. I forget what it was called. It was some sort of fitness for in your chair anyway.
Yes.
So it was fitness for if you're sitting. And I thought, wow, because man, my foot and knee has been playing up, which so I'm just not being as active as I should be.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, maybe there'll be, like I didn't consider it back then, but I would consider it now.
Well, I know
in my chair.
Yeah, I have a younger friend who it does belong to the senior sits activity groups in Puri because she has MS, and I know she goes to chair aerobics or chair exercise, and she does something called bug, which sounds a bit like hangman, but it's done with dice. So if you roll a 6, you can do 6 legs or something like that. So they draw bugs, and things like that. And they're like a couple of dollars a time. And at one stage, she was out every single day. She was busier than I was.
Yeah, just having fun, just interacting with people, just keeping your mind and your body moving. Yeah.
And I like the association that I've joined here, I wasn't expecting to get voted on. I just went along. And so it's a bit of a shock to land in it, but I'm really glad it happened because it's networked me with new people around here. And because I'm not traveling like I was and not interacting with my coaching peers like I was, it's filled that gap that I need with intellectual conversations and stuff as well. So, yeah. So I can't.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I need to check out what's around. I sort of haven't looked.
Yeah.
I've been here now 3.5 months, so maybe even nearly 4 months.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's been full on with work, but I sort of thought, I need to start checking out. We used to get a free newspaper. I remember, and I used to love going through the newspaper, looking at the community groups. I just think it's like, I know social media is a good thing. There's nothing, I'm not ragging on social media, but man, there's something to be said for just being able to pick up a newspaper and flick through to the community notices and read them all. Because all of the community groups would be in the community notices section. Because normally community notices was always free. So it's not like they had to pay for that advertising. So even organisations that have very little finance were able to advertise. Whereas it's just so much harder to find community, what's out there.
The council, I don't know how far the council office for Ballarat is from you, but they would probably have notice boards or flyers in the office.
Probably, I probably should head down there and see what's there. I wonder how many of the organisations would advertise through the council. I don't know. Yeah, well, I probably should pop down and see.
Yeah, if they're looking, most of those organisations would be looking for funding, and most of them would therefore want grants, and council gives grants. So I think they'd probably mostly be at least registered there. Yeah.
I know there's one because one thing when I moved here that was a little bit different to what I'd come across in South Australia was something that they call, oh, now I can't remember the name. Can't remember if it's community house or neighbourhood house.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we didn't have anything equivalent when I used to live in South Australia. Um, it reminds me of, do you remember back in the day when TAFE was a bit more like community minded and you'd actually do
Yes.
things that catered to the community needs? Well, that's what
Mm.
these community house or neighbourhood houses seem to be. It's like
Yeah.
looking at what are the skill, because they obviously any tutors or group leaders need to be
Mm.
skilled. So
Yeah.
it's like um, who's prepared to volunteer because they're never
Yes.
paid positions. So, what are the skills of the volunteers, and then what are the needs of the community around that
Community.
want to learn
Yeah.
these things? Yeah,
Mm.
and I know we've got one at least. It's called Ballarat East Community House or Neighbourhood House.
Yep.
They've got a lot of stuff. So they've got a walking group, and there was
Yeah.
even like a history group, learn history. Oh,
Yes.
I tell you the other thing that we've got here, and I don't know whether this is in South Australia. I didn't look it up when I was there, but it's the oh, is it U3 University of the Third Wave or something? Oh, I can't
Oh,
remember the name there. Now I'm making shit up. I can't remember.
we've
It's
Port
something.
Perry's got
Oh,
Uni Hub. Port Perry's got
yeah,
Uni
no,
Hub.
it's
So you can
nothing
do
like
that.
that because the
Oh,
Uni Hub is actually the Uni Hub is a very good service. I was talking to I think it was the CEO when I was over in Puri, when we went to that networking meeting.
oh yes.
Yeah. And that is a great service, but it's completely, that's for people who are actually studying university.
Mm.
I'm just going to see if I can look it up. Is it university?
And
Oh, I wish I could
book
remember. But
club.
anyway, so what that is basically it's geared at older. I can't remember whether it's over 50, maybe, is what their main target is, or
Yeah.
over 60. I just can't even remember now. Must be at least 50 because I looked at it a few years ago. And they're a bit the same. They'll have tutors who volunteer, and it can be anything, like whatever it is. It could be photography, it could be learn English, it could be creative writing, how to do
Mm.
poetry, how to paint, how to dance.
Mm.
So it's totally dependent on the skills of the community, really,
Yeah.
and you can join them. I've heard mixed reports though. It's like with anything, isn't it? It's like with anything. You get a group of random strangers together, and some of you are going to get on, and some of you you're
Uh,
just not. And you get some people that like there's every group's got them, hasn't it? Someone that just knows best and just dominates and takes over, and everybody
yeah.
gets sick of them.
Yeah.
There's always one in every group, and it's whether you can be bothered navigating through and actually getting to know them or not sometimes.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
like my friend, she was volunteering, so they were making sandwiches for
Mm.
kids. So that's what the volunteered. She was doing it 2 or 3 times a week. I can't
Yeah.
remember exactly now, but they'd get together, they'd make sandwiches. The sandwiches would then go to the schools. So the schools would actually let them know how many. So this is for children who don't have lunches, who come
Mm.
to school without lunch. So schools would kind of let them know how many they'd need for that week, and what they would always make sandwiches that could be frozen. So if they didn't all get used, they'd go into the freezer, and
Meat
then
and
if there's a
cheese. Yeah.
child without it, yeah,
Mm.
the teachers can get it out the freezer. So one of the volunteers there, she just kept telling everybody how to cut the cheese, how to cut the sandwiches, how to put the glad wrap on, and all of this, and just drove people nuts. And the funny thing was, she wasn't even doing it very well, apparently.
Gosh, what?
But she just took over. And
Yeah.
it was like my friend actually stopped going there. She
Yeah.
persevered for about 18 months,
Yeah.
but it got to the point where this lady was just so domineering that
Mm.
she doesn't do that
Yeah.
activity anymore. She does other
Yeah.
things instead.
Yeah. And that's sad because you lose good people because of poor behavior. Yeah.
Yeah, and And mind you, volunteers are very hard to manage.
Mm.
Like, as you would
Oh, yes.
probably know through the
Now,
work that you're
yeah,
doing now. And I think, and I've done enough, being in leadership roles in enough voluntary things, because you've got to weigh the fact is they're not getting paid for the work.
that's right. Yes. Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like, how do you balance that as a
Yeah. And
leader? Mm,
the other thing we don't do sometimes is we don't define roles because they're not paid. We
mm,
don't define the roles. And perhaps I think what we need to do is define roles more. Because sometimes people come along and they want to be part of a community and they want to just tell you what to do all the time, but they don't put any effort
mm,
in. And it's like, well,
mm,
no, your job's not to put, yeah, it's not to tell us what to do. This particular group is running that project. They'll decide what to do. You come in here to not just suggest or, yeah, open your mouth. You're here to do. And yeah, so yeah,
Well,
that's
and I think the other thing that goes hand in hand with it, with defining your role, is training,
yes,
because that's one of the things that we fall down in with our
there is
volunteer
none.
organisations. Yeah, is the lack of training.
Yes,
Now, that is twofold, because sometimes there's nobody within the organisation that has the ability to train. So
yes.
that is something that the organisations need to address. But the other side of it is, a lot of volunteers don't think they need to be trained. See, they don't think they need to be trained in how to do sandwiches.
Yeah. Mm.
But the truth is, it's like, this is our process, this is how we do it. The
Yeah.
reason we do it this way is because this is the needs of the schools,
Yes.
and this is
Yeah.
just how it's done.
Yes.
This is
Yeah.
what everybody does, the same thing, so that every child and every school, and then every child knows what to expect.
Yeah. Uh,
And by defining that role and then giving them the training, say this is how we do it,
yeah.
um, hopefully what happens is, either the people that just don't want to learn, well, it's like, you don't have a choice.
Mm.
If you
Yeah.
don't want to do the training, or you don't want to do it that way, I'm just sorry, but
Go
you
volunteer
can't.
someone else, somewhere else.
Yeah.
There needs
And
to be a bit of
that's really hard, isn't it?
yeah.
As
And it's
a leader.
I had a boss that said to me he was raised in the country and had a lot over the decades to do with sports clubs and all sorts of other associations. And he
Mm.
said often in small towns, the people that are in the clubs, running the clubs and the associations, are people that have not necessarily got themselves a label through their working life, especially if they're older, and now they
Okay.
have a title. This is how he saw it, and this was probably a decade or so ago that he was looking at it retrospectively. And he said that, yeah, suddenly they get a power surge because they're the whatever secretary, whatever. Yeah, it could be anything. Um, yeah, and you sort of see a lot of that ego come out.
That's true, isn't
So,
it? Because they
yes, it
feel
is.
important. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of
Yeah.
course, these days, you've so many people, young people can't volunteer, they're all working. You know, mum and dad are both
Mm,
working, there's childcare, all the rest of it. So it's a lot of older people doing the volunteering, but they don't have
mm,
technical skills. And
mm.
that's where we're coming up unstuck, is that they either don't have computers, they don't know how to use their phone properly. Yeah, and it's really difficult because you need people who are able to deal with the amount of information flow that we get now, which is exponentially more than it used to be. And yeah,
Well, the other thing, I mean, now this is just a random thought that I've wondered about. I have no data to say whether this is even remotely true, but I wonder, with the whole voluntary, whether the impact of our Centrelink services, our social welfare services, because if they've are collecting unemployment benefits, there comes a point where they actually have to go and do voluntary work.
15
So,
hours a week.
so is that actually negatively impacting our voluntary services, or positively impacting it? And I think it's probably a mixture, because I look at it, it's become actually an industry in itself.
It
Because
is.
I was looking at some voluntary work. This is 3 or 4 years ago now, and I can't even quite remember what the role was. But anyway, it was something that quite interested me. And I thought, oh man, I would be so good at that. And maybe I could just go and volunteer to do that. But then you look at the app, like I had to put in an application to volunteer, and it was just
Yes.
all expectation. And all I could think was, oh my God, I'm not going for a corporate job. I've got to do this when I put in for jobs. I just can't be bothered to
Yeah.
the, because it was so extensive.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, if your application is like this, what else sits behind it that I'm just not going to be able to be bothered
Okay.
with?
It legally has to be that complex because
Mm,
now all associations have to have volunteer insurance. So we pay insurance each year, and yeah, our people have to fill out different forms and stuff. If you're doing, like our op shop here has volunteers that do the Centrelink stuff, there's a form to
mm,
fill out at the beginning, and then there's training and stuff, but they can say, no, you're not suitable. So the people who run the association do get to say yay, nay um, on that.
well,
Yeah.
it's really interesting, isn't it, that we've got this whole impact now on our voluntary services.
Mm.
And I just think, yeah, so this would have impacted this industry a lot, wouldn't it? And
Hugely.
and you get a lot of people out there that maybe would have volunteered and been really good at it, but just don't want to navigate what they need to navigate to be able to be a
Yeah.
volunteer.
Yeah. And the
And
process of
and then
getting,
you're competing. And what about you're actually competing with all these unemployed people who are in theory looking for work, and you
yeah.
might not. So you might go through that whole application process and not even be allowed to volunteer.
Well, if you're older and in an area like this where there are no jobs for older people, and you can get into the 15-hour a week thing, that is your job to get paid the Centrelink amount
Mm,
because you don't have to look for a job anymore, depending on
mm,
age and a whole heap of other demographics. So, but there's other things like food service. You're not allowed to pick up dishes or take them to the sink in a cafe unless you've got food handling certificates.
mm,
So anyone who's
mm,
volunteering in those capacity all have to do the certificate.
mm.
And
You're right,
sometimes,
actually, because I had to go and do that certificate, and you just think, oh man, who could be but like you think, oh, you just wanted to work, just wanted to go and help at Meals on Wheels.
yeah.
It's
And I
like, but
don't know how
first of
they
all,
handle disabled people who lack the intellect to perhaps do the certificate but can still cart dishes. I don't know where the line is there
mm,
either, or whether they get an assisted situation. Don't know.
mm.
But yeah.
Well, and I suppose, I mean, I now this is an area I haven't done anything in this for a really long time, but I used to help out at kids clubs and things like that. Well, we would always have after school snacks and stuff. So I'm assuming that's all regulated beyond belief now as well. What you can give,
Probably is.
like, are you allowed to just
Oh, I don't know.
make them cakes? And probably not. It's probably got
Probably
to
no.
be because
Yeah.
you'd have to know what all the ingredients are and
And
everything.
all
I'm
the
assuming.
allergies, all the allergens for the
Mm.
kids. And yeah, I don't know. I haven't sort of dabbled in that area for a long time. So yeah, it's
I would say it's really complex because I don't know either these days. But you
yeah,
can see why there's less community groups that are doing things for people, can't you?
yeah, yeah. Well, we would love to, have paid employees in our association at some point to carry the load because the paperwork load has increased hugely.
Mm,
Um, and stuff, but we don't have an income. We don't have an ongoing income. Like
mm,
there's towns either side of us that actually own farming land and the local farmers farm it for their associations and then they earn that income. So they got this
mm,
ongoing coverage. But it probably costs 20 grand a year to run our association and we don't have that money coming in.
mm.
We've
So how do
sold,
you get the money?
well, fundraising previously, this last year we've sold two properties that were,
That's right. I remember you
yeah,
saying
that were
about that. Yeah,
sort of managed.
flipped.
So a handful of old blokes used to do little houses up and stuff
Yeah.
over a period of time, but their running costs were lower because they weren't dealing with all the paperwork. The
Mm,
insurances have all gone up and everything else. So we've put that money aside and we set up a raft of projects we did through rural aid, and that money's targeted in different sized lumps to those projects.
Mm.
Once, yeah, yeah, some of our people, I swear our president's doing 40 hours a week. And
Oh, wow.
yeah,
That's a lot.
there's a
Yeah.
huge
That's
amount
a
of kids,
full-time job.
and he's still running a
Mm.
business. And I know
Mm.
I'm doing a lot of hours at times. And then the secretary is the same, also running
Mm.
a business. So you've got, yeah, we're not all retired. We're actually working and still trying
Mm.
to do all that. Um, yeah, so it is difficult. And I don't know, I'd love to see younger people on there, but I also recognize that they want to be with their families in the minutes that they get, you know.
Mm.
And in a town like this, they're usually tradies and the wives are hairdressers or something like that, or running other businesses or working. How do you volunteer on top of all of that and get the
Mm.
kids to sport and blah?
Mm. Well, because usually if you're involved in country sport, there's usually obligations for volunteer work there. You know,
Already,
if it's
yes.
at your grounds, then you need to
Mm.
be on the canteen roster or all sorts of
Exactly.
different things, isn't
Yeah.
there?
So yeah,
Mm.
so
So
they're
it's not
already
just taking
volunteering
your kids.
sports,
Mm.
so they don't have room for the other things. So yeah, I don't know
Mm.
where it'll head. I think a lot of services that volunteers do will possibly end up um, sort of community paid work services eventually, or we won't have them.
Mm.
So
Well, I guess we're sort of seeing part of that with, like we were talking earlier, the whole welfare
mm,
requirements to
yeah,
receive a welfare income. Then you have to go and volunteer. But
mm,
I don't know, as soon as it's got government interference like that, it just
yeah,
becomes very onerous
yes.
in your reporting obligations, which
Oh,
adds costs to the organisation.
yes, exactly. I mean, with our op shop, there's an ongoing need for staff because it's open 5 days a week. So that, that 15 hours is easy for them to do. But when you're talking about an association where there's projects or,
Mm.
yeah, and it's different hours and stuff. Yeah, most of the volunteers that ended up doing most of the work is the executive and the committee in the
Mm.
association. I'd love to see us draw more volunteers in, and hopefully, because we've done a few projects, that they will be interested. But yeah, we'll get
Well, and there's been like, it's just even the painting down through that walkway that you had done and everything. It just
yeah,
brings awareness to the fact that you're even there as an association and you really are
yeah.
making an impact in your community.
Yes, or at least
And
we're
yeah,
trying to.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And
so,
but the more of those things that you achieve, the more people see that you're there and
yeah.
hopefully want to be involved.
Yes, well, we're looking at
Mm.
leasing some railway land that's already been developed, but to do some more stuff for bigger kids and stuff. So there will be some
Mm.
other building type projects that come out of this. And yeah, people are applying for grants left, right, and centre. These days, to get a grant to do something, others seem to think that we just go and ask for a grant. No, we have to have money behind us, which was the reason behind the choice to sell assets, was to
Mm.
how much they basically say how much money are you putting in, and
Mm.
then we'll consider you. And so you kind of have to budget for an entire project and work out, yeah, how much you can contribute, and then your volunteer status and everything else, and prove that before they'll even read the grant application. If different town associations don't get volunteers to run them, then those projects won't happen. They won't move
Mm.
forward. Towns, yeah, unless they get private sponsorship or something like that, maybe.
Yeah, well, because councils can only do so much, can't they?
Yes, yes. And our council, I think, lost some money a while back. Yeah, the
Mm.
running of councils has been challenging in lots of places, and so sometimes they haven't held on to their funding as well as they had. So,
Mm.
yeah. But they're certainly improving. They're employing better quality people, better qualified people. So we've seen a lot of changes with our council, and they've been positive changes in the last few years. And we've just got a new CEO again, so it'll be interesting to meet him and see what he's like. a changing landscape. Hit the subscribe button below if you want to follow life hacks beyond convention.